Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, episode 59 of your favorite podcast, Cutoffs and Coffee. We're your host, James and CT from T3 Performance, as always. And today we have an unbelievable conversation with Kait from KANE9 Dog Training. Kait is the owner and lead trainer of KANE9 Dog Training. And we spend an hour diving into taking the deep dive into the rabbit hole of dog training, what you're doing wrong, what you're doing right, how Kait would have changed things if she first early on got her dogs and what she does now when she gets new dog. I mean, there's so much information in this that I can't even split it up in the intro. It's just something you need to listen to. If you are a dog owner, if you are a dog lover, you need to listen to this conversation. You can follow Kait on at KANE9 Dog Training on Instagram and YouTube. You might as well just do that and pause this and check out all her stuff and then come back to us and listen to the conversation. I promise you are going to take at least 10 to 20 things out of this conversation that you can take into your relationship and your habits with your dog or dogs that is going to make a huge impact on your relationship.
And this episode is brought to you by Underdog Fitness. So after a long day of training your dog, going for a long walk, all right, working on all those skills that you just learned during this podcast, you're going to need some recovery tools to help you bounce back and do it all again. Because you know it, we need consistency in training, consistency in training our dogs. So go ahead and use the code SPRING15 to get $15 off the Underdog Roller Kit. This kit has a foam roller, a spiky lacrosse ball for your feet if your dogs are barking. I'm talking about your feet. It has recovery bands and a hip circle, everything you need for a workout or to recover after a long day of training your dogs.
If you enjoy what we're doing here on the podcast, or you're new to the podcast because you are a huge fan of Kait's, all we ask you to do is like, subscribe, follow us wherever you get your podcasts, on Apple, on Spotify, on YouTube. That really shows us love, and we really appreciate when you do that. If you also have anybody on that you would love for us to talk to and learn about what makes them so good at what they do, feel free to reach out to us and let us know. But without going any further about this, here we go. Here's the conversation. We've been talking about it. We've been teasing it out. Enjoy the conversation with Kait. We know you're going to take a ton from it because we definitely did enjoy. Kait, welcome to the show. We are so excited. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
We were just talking and catching up a little bit off air, but I had to tell you, and I had to say this online, when we adopted our dog about a year and a half ago, you were the first kind of like informational Instagram page that my fiance sent me. And now it's basically like a daily check-in with Kait. And it's like, all right, what is she doing with the dogs? What do we need to do? So we wanted to thank you for all the unbelievable information you're putting out to dog owners everywhere. It seems like people are loving it. You're doing an excellent job, you and your husband together with your business. So we're so stoked to dive into this. And first, I wanted to start by thanking you for everything you've been doing on behalf of everybody who owns dogs and takes, what you do and they use it for a better life for them and for their dogs. So thank you. You're doing amazing work. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Of course.
So we like to start this thing to get to know you a little bit better. And this was, out of all the questions we had, you had mentioned possibly the hardest question to answer. But what's one skill that you are either working on currently or you have worked on most recently?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this two different ways. The first one that I had to think about was I am going to take a different approach of it not being like a new hobby or anything like that, but really working on actively listening and intentionally responding. So I talk so much about in our training and stuff is it being so mindset focused. And I think that us humans all have so much growth to do that on our own. And I work with so many people that I can tell really struggle actively listening, like when I'm giving them their new skill set that they need with their dog, and they reactively respond versus intentionally respond. But then I was like, gosh, it's so annoying. I'm like, I do that. I'm like, I also do that. So that's something, a new skill I'm very much trying to practice is actively listen and be intentional with my responses. Something a little bit less like, bougie, if you will, is working on creating the perfect latte. So just bought a espresso machine, the ones you got the beans, you got to grind it, you got to steep your own milk. So that has been a new skill that I've been obsessed with, is finding the perfect bean milk ratio, all that good stuff.
And how is that process going?
In the beginning, it was a total fail. Like I thought that you just put the beans in the machine and it was like a perfect espresso shot, but you have to like get the optimal grind level. You need to make sure you're tampering it like perfectly, not too hard, not too soft. So the first couple of like espresso shots that we made were like bitter and like so not good. I'm like, this is delicious, because I just had to convince myself that it was worth the money for the machine. But yeah, now that we're dialing in, they're turning out pretty dang good.
So respect to all the baristas out there who are putting out basically the perfect cup of espresso or the perfect drink every single time.
Yeah, I will stop complaining about the price of lattes now because I get it. As long as it's from like a local cool coffee shop, I'm like, take all my money. Like I get it.
Oh
now,
gosh,
CT, I've made espresso for us before. Was that bitter? And it's okay to say yes.
I mean, now that we're talking about it, that's the worst cup of espresso that I've ever had. No, I really enjoy it. Actually, after we had our last cup, I told my fiance, I said, this needs to go on the registry.
Totally.
She told me, well, we have a Keurig. And I said, I'm pretty sure it's different.
So too.
Now, yeah. And she's a big fan of yours, Kate. So I'll say, hey,
Kate said
said it. So we got to make it happen. If there's one say that I get in the wedding, right? Maybe that part's it. And question number 2 here. What is something that we need to know about you that we can't find from a quick Google or Instagram search?
Oh, that's hard. Know about me.
You do a great job of putting stuff out there, right? Like always stories are in depth and you do a great job of sharing your info.
Yeah, I really do try to like come to the table or come to my stories as me. Obviously, you don't see like every odds, like everything about my life and stuff like that. But for the most part, there's not going to be a lot like super left unsaid. I guess the only thing is like you could, if someone really wanted to like go dive back into like my old Instagram, they could make assumptions on things of I've not always been like super confident and authentic and like who I am. So I think that a lot of people, at least a lot of trainers that I now kind of coach versus being the newbie in the beginning, are always like, you're just so confident. And I'm like, that was not me. Like I'm a very different Kate that I am that you're talking to today that I was even 5 years ago. So I think unless you really went digging, or if you knew me like in high school or something, you wouldn't be able to find that out just by looking at my, Instagram. I was definitely the kid in high school that it's like, I don't really know where I fit in. I wasn't the gal that all the, football players were asking out and stuff. So that's something you definitely couldn't find out about me. And people kind of are like, oh, I'm surprised, because I do very much like, I am confident in who I am now as a person. But I don't think it's definitely been something that's been a work in progress over the years.
Yes. Oh my gosh. What a great answer. Do you know what it was that made that switch, that kind of flipped on? Then all of a sudden you were the person who's sitting in front of us today?
I think a lot of brain work, to be honest, because especially from like a female's point of view, we're just everything. It's like how you look, how your body is. And that was a huge thing for me in the past, especially, is like, oh my gosh, I can't put myself on camera. I don't want to be on video, all of that kind of stuff of like pressure. But I think it was also just like really, really working on like waking up every day, not worried about like what everyone else is going to think about me. Is like, I want to feel good about the choices I'm making about myself. So that really kind of shifted my head of like, I kind of dig the person I am before like anything else. Like I dig the mind that I'm bringing to the table, the heart that I'm bringing to the table. So I think it's just a lot of practice of like making sure that I am being an authentic person that I want to be and continuing to grow has really helped my confidence, not just from being like, just taking a lot more video. It's like, yes, that helps, that practice of going on video and putting it up there. Now it's just like, I don't really care. Like I look like that in the video today. That's okay. No worries. This is reality. But definitely doing a lot of work on my own mental health, I guess you could call it.
Gosh, that's so good. James and I just got off the phone 2 hours ago, and we're saying very similar things. Like, I don't know, how are people going to dig this? Are they going to like it? And we kind of just decided it doesn't matter, right? If we feel comfortable putting the stuff out that we're putting out and we're feeling better in our skin and doing the things that we love to do, the right people are going to get connected to it. So we appreciate that you did all that work, because you're doing an unbelievable job.
Oh, thank you.
So let's go back kind of pre-2017, right? Like, what were you doing before the training started? Then talk us through, the beginning of, KANE9, and then kind of take us up to where you're at now and everything you have going on. So tell us your story.
Yeah. So, from Wisconsin, went to college in Green Bay, Wisconsin, go Pack Go. And then I worked for a cheese company. So I was in sales and marketing. So I went to school for marketing business. So, I kind of just thought, I'm going to do the whole marketing thing, work for, a company, work my way up, kind of the thought process that when you go to college, you kind of think you're going to just do what everyone else is doing. But I always kind of knew, like, I'm going to do something different. Like, I knew that one day I'm going to have my own thing. I don't know what that's going to be yet, but I'm going to do it. So it really wasn't until I always knew that I was like super obsessed with animals, and dogs primarily. In high school, I did a lot of volunteering at our local humane society, and I would take out all of the dogs that no one else wanted to take out, because you go into some shelters and, these dogs are coming up to the doors and they're coming hard at you, barking their head off, really over aroused, which now I know what that is. But it's a little like, okay, I'm gonna, keep a distance, but those dogs still need to be out. They still need to be walked. So I would walk those dogs. And when I'd get them out of that environment and just start, I didn't really honestly know what I was doing, but it was just naturally felt like working with them. Oh, sorry. Did my camera just popped down for a second? Oh, call popped up.
Oh, there.
Sorry.
Yep. All good over here.
So, yeah. So I just went out with the dogs and I'm like, I just love them. Like, maybe I'm going to open my own rescue. And then I'm like, I want to be able to live a life that also I make money, which, I know you can do that in rescue, but seemed a little bit like not exactly what I want to do. It wasn't until I was working the cheese company that I was like, I'm ready to adopt my own dog. I'm going to go to the shelter. I'm going to be intentional about, what dog I pick up, but I always knew I wanted a bully breed. Those were just always my heart dogs. And I go in and I see this adorable little red-nosed pitty that now I know, why he is the way he is. But it was interesting. He was not going up to the door for anyone but me as I walked by. So I very much listened with my heart versus my head. And I'm glad I did, because it's led me to what I'm doing today. But now I do know better for helping educate people down the road. But super timid guy, really young. He was only 5 months old at the time. So really young dog. And I didn't leave without him. So I got him out and he was adorable, precious. He still is. But it was really quickly that I realized wow, this dog has a lot going on. Just out of control when he'd see other dogs on the walk, super insecure, suspicious of new people. Every challenge that I now have owners come to me for, my dog had, and still struggles with to this day. So I knew that I need to figure out how to help this dog best, but also to be a super responsible dog owner, because his behaviors were not safe. We cannot have him attacking other dogs. We cannot have him biting people, really serious stuff. And I'm like, wow, at such a young age, this is crazy. So I got a free class to go to a dog training spot, which is a big box store, which I'll let you guys connect the dots on what that
Sure.
might be. And I walk in and they're like, oh yeah, just anytime he's passing other dogs or people, just throw cookies at him, throw treats at him. And I'm just like, hey, I'm going to try it because the professional is telling me this. And my common sense was no, this is ridiculous. I need to help him learn how to do better, but also at the same time, this is dangerous behavior. It's kind of common sense of, I'm sure that if a child was throwing this kind of antics, a parent would have to step in to try to teach in that type of setting. He wasn't learning anything with me trying to throw cookies at him. So that's what led me to then finding a trainer that does what we call a little bit more of a balanced approach, where it's not just never tell your dog no. It's very much, let's teach our dogs what's expected of them and hold them accountable for what has been taught. And that changed my life with living and owning an aggressive dog. And I knew, like, as I got into it, I was so obsessed with it. Like, anytime I had off time from my job, I was like working with him, working with friends' dogs. Like, I didn't think about anything else. So I just dove right into what we'd call like the balanced dog training world. And truly, it all happened so quick after that. It was just like the snowball effect of, wow, I'm helping other people. Okay, I guess I'm actually pretty good at this. And then I immediately am like, I'm going to start investing in like shadow programs, going to learn from other trainers. And it wasn't long after I really started getting into this that I'm like, I'm going to do my own thing. And that's kind of how K9 evolved, was really owning a super challenging dog myself that led me to, this entire world of dog training.
Now, as you're describing your journey, you kind of, start as someone who's just passionate about animals and dogs, and you're going in with a very open mind, but you're still paying attention to like the environments you're putting yourself in, and you're trying to learn. Like you mentioned at first, it was just, the big box chain. As you start getting more into the specifics of what you're practicing now, did you have any big paradigm shifting moments as you're working with these mentors and coaches that really help things click in terms of how you teach, what you're doing with training dogs or training humans?
Yeah, I think what I was seeing was more gaps more than anything else of like, okay, why am I a person that can come to the table and I'm very coachable and I'm going to apply the information that a professional is giving me? And I knew that about myself. But what was missing is, and this is where I kind of realized like, oh my gosh, like I have something here, is there wasn't enough attention to the owners. And what I mean by that is like, we have to make this a lifestyle change with your dog. This cannot be a training class you go to. That's why I don't, not that training classes aren't great as long as owners are going and implementing things. But for me, it was like, how can we make the owners feel more empowered and a part of the process versus just like, here's what I need you to do, go do this and everything will be great. Well, no, that's not the reality of it, especially if you're dealing with any sort of challenging behaviors. So I was noticing that with, the balanced dog community as well, is there's so many people out there doing such great things with the dogs and great things with the humans too. But I wasn't seeing someone really putting the huge focus on the human aspect of it. I was seeing a lot of like shame more than anything of like, gosh, owners just suck. Like they just don't apply themselves. They're lazy. And it's like, okay, well, who's that helping? So for me, I'm like, I do see those aspects too. And I will say I'm very picky with who I do work with now. Like there are some people that it's like, I could work with your dog, but I'm not going to work with you. And that sounds a bit harsh at times, but if the full equation, if we're not all going to be ready to like make some changes and implement the work, like we're wasting each other's time at that point. And it's like, yes, the dog's going to suffer at the end of the day, but they would even if I worked with them or not, because they're going to still go back to the same environment. So for me, watching, trainers that I would potentially do a lot of things similar with them and trainers I wouldn't do, I was like, I want to make it a lifestyle program for dogs and owners, not just we're dog trainers. No, we are shifting the way that dogs and humans live life together. That's really what I consider what K9 is making sure that we're finding a consistent, attainable and sustainable lifestyle for a dog and a human in the same environment.
Hey, you mentioned that it kind of turned up pretty quick, right? You adopted your dog, you were walking other dogs, you saw how much you loved spending time with dogs, and that's all you were thinking, and then kind of opened your own thing. What was the skill acquisition portion like for you as an individual who was then now not only dealing with one dog, but multiple? and a decent amount of time a day and then spending good amount of time with them. What was that skill acquisition portion like for you? And is it something that's always ongoing, or are
Yeah.
you at a point now where like, we've got the answers, we know what we're going to do no matter what? What's all that kind of look like?
The dogs are the teachers. So that's where I talk to a lot of our, newer trainers. And I also host a trainer workshop for other trainers with another really good trainer friend of mine out in Orlando, where it's like, that's where we talk to so many people about, is that no matter where you're at in your journey of dog training, you can bring someone value. Yes, it doesn't mean you should take on every kind of dog. I don't want to take on every kind of dog. There's certain dogs that I'm just zero interest in ever bringing on for my own personal boundaries. But I will never stop learning as long as I have a new dog at the end of my leash. I have a dog in right now that I'm like, he's teaching me so much. So the skill set definitely, and I tell other trainers this, it's like, it's got to happen while you're working with the dog. I know you want to go to this school, you want to go shadow this person, great, continue to do those things. I also did a lot of that stuff in the beginning, but I could read 17 dog training books and go grab the end of the leash of a dog, and I still wouldn't be like prepared to be a dog trainer if that's how I started. It was me being like, all right, I'm going to jump in the deep end and I'm going to work with some dogs that like maybe I shouldn't be working with right now. I'm not saying that I recommend that, but some of my friends' dogs, I worked with dogs for free for a while because I'm like, I need to get my hands on dogs, and they're going to be the greatest teachers, and they truly, truly are. And then obviously my biggest thing, honestly, is shadow programs on top of that. So that's going to be where you can actually go learn from another trainer and get hands-on help. I don't find that going to like a dog training seminar where you sit and watch the trainer work with the dogs the whole time is as valuable. I still think great information, but I think the hands-on aspect of it is truly what has made my skill set grow every single day. And I do think that naturally some people have it, but I do think that people that work really, really hard can learn. But I do feel like a complete natural when I'm at the end of the leash. It's just like people that have like a profession that's just like, I was born to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what I truly feel like when I'm working with a dog, is it's just, I get into a different world. Like my brain is like on dog wavelengths, not on human wavelengths at that point. So it's cool.
I think if you're listening to this right now and you made it this far, I want you to go back and listen to the last 10 minutes and replace the word dog with athlete and replace the word owner with parent. And if that doesn't blow your mind, right? I think there are so many similarities that you just described with what we do with the athletes we work with. And a lot of times the parents are the hurdles. So parents that are listening, I'm sorry if I offended you, but if you're listening, it's probably not you I'm talking about.
Exactly.
So I think it's so fascinating. You talked about reading the dog's body language. You're learning about each dog as an individual, but you're kind of leaning on that book knowledge in a sense to give you some context. But until you actually start doing it, you're not going to be able to pick up on those cues that are more subtle, or that intuition isn't just coming from a textbook. As you're working with other coaches and trainers, how do you get to relay that message across to them to help them understand that like there is no better form of learning than teaching and doing, and that it is okay to not have all the answers right away?
I think that it's really them having to kind of get out of their own way at that point. So if it is like I'm just not sure if I'm ready. I wasn't ready. So it's one of those things where it's like, most often when I talk to someone, they're like, all right, who do you recommend for a shadow program? I'm like, well, first off, me, of course. And then I give, some others, and they're usually like, all right, I'm going to do it. Or we'll have other trainers that head back from like our dog training or our dog trainers seminar. There's no dogs at it, it's just for the trainers that, like some people, they can all hear the same message, and say there's 10 people there, 50% are going to go hit the ground running. And there's going to be 5 other people that it's like, they got the same message. So they have to, at that point, like I'm the same way with my owners too. I'm not going to convince anyone of anything. I'm going to give them the information and give them the resources where they can go then apply that. But then at that point, they have to really take the lead on it. But when other trainers do it, they are like, I wish I did it sooner. I wish I asked my friend to work with their dog sooner, because they prove it to themselves as well, that it's like, as long as I'm confident with myself and confident with the work I'm bringing to the table, I've got this. And that's the biggest thing, is if people are just like, I just want to be a dog trainer, I'll get people that are like, you just play with dogs all day. I'm like, is that what I do? Yeah, I'm playing with dogs as one of them's coming up the leash at me right now. Totally. But as long as people stay super authentic to who they are and other trainers, I think a lot of times like egos get in the way of like, I want to be like dog trainer that's wrangling all the aggressive dogs. It's like, cool if you actually want to do that, but like, let's work with the dogs that aren't trying to go up the leash with you right now. Like, let's really just apply some simple concepts and let the dogs teach you. If you are not open to, like, if what I see a lot is we either have like extremes of people wanting the dog to be perfect right away, because they're like, well, I saw that you did a session and it happened right away. I'm like, yeah, but I also talk about how messy something is that lasts 4 days with a dog. So people will then get too like frustrated in the work. And I'm like, if you're frustrated in the beginning, take a step back to see if this is really what you want to do, because you don't take it out on the animal, and make sure that you understand that literally what we do is being patient. So it really is kind of like the, you can only lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink type of concept, with both owners and other trainers, myself included. There's things where I'm like, oh, come on, like, get off your ass. Oh, can I swear?
Oh yeah, we've heard way worse than that. Oh,
all right, cool. And like, do it, but we can only be like motivated by others so much. Like sometimes that's where like your discipline has to kick in. And the same goes for both owners and the trainer side of the things. Because the dogs are showing up. They're like, I'm here for it. Some days you swear they didn't show up, but they're still there. We're still making them a part of the equation no matter what. And I think that's where things can get a little bit muddy. And that's where I kind of want to like give owners some tough love. Is like, we're asking our dogs to show up every day, to live with certain expectations that we want from them. But are you showing up to make sure that they understand what those expectations are? That's where like my tough love Kate comes from with my clients, is like, we're asking your dog to do a lot right now. I'm asking you to, give me a little right now. And my owners are amazing. I'll be the first to say, but that's from a lot of trial and error of now being like, no, I got really, really good at saying no to people.
And that's such an important skill to have. Hey, I keep going back to this. I've underlined it 6 times now. The dogs are the teachers. That's like such a cool and powerful statement. And it kind of takes me, the next thing I'm thinking about is, okay, you and I had gone back and forth a little bit on social media in messages, and I'm so interested in around that idea, right? The dogs are the teachers. They're teaching us what we need to do. They can't communicate to us the same way that we can communicate. And that's, people are like, oh, that's so stupid, obviously. Right. But there is some type of communication that you were using with them and they're using with you. How are we kind of working through this communication barrier by using, verbal and non-verbal communication, and using body cues, and using, different cues and treats and words and things like that?
Yeah.
How are we able to do that to make sure that, that the dog is telling you what you need to know, and you are then responding and telling them, the same kind of back and forth? I understand it's a pretty general question, but just as far as like verbal and nonverbal communication, I think it's so cool what you're able to do and have these conversations with these animals who don't understand what we're saying. Can you talk us kind of through that process a little bit?
Yeah. So the verbal stuff, honestly, is like, for me, the least important. Obviously, we start to label things because I need to tangibly give owners something to say to their dog, because no matter what, even if I tell owners, stop talking to your dog, they're going to talk to their dog. So if I can at least start to label things for a dog that's going to make sense, again, myself included, I baby talk my dogs. I, tell them all the things that they're not understanding, but I also make sure that when I am trying to actually give them information for living in a very human world, I'm clear about that. So majority of my work with these dogs is nonverbal. from a standpoint of spatial pressure, energy. And it sounds a little woo-woo, but it's so true. Like, just think about like if,
and we are here for woo-woo, by the way.
yeah.
I mean, I love it.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where it's like you can feel an energy shift in the room if, say, someone just had an argument in the room and then it's all silent. What does everyone feel? Oh my gosh, like tense, like this is awkward. If we had a moment where it's like someone just cried it out, we all feel like a little bit like melancholy, but also a little relief after it. The same thing happens with dogs from a standpoint of like, if I'm coming to a dog with a very calm, assertive energy and just take a step towards them, most often they are going to offer me a sit. Even if I say and do nothing but that, then what do? I back away from them. And we both feel this almost like release. And there's kind of like this moment of understanding of like, all right, I understood that. Good, I did too. And that's where I start marking. So I try to shape behaviors with my spatial pressure, embodied, and of course, leash, because at the end of the day, we have to teach a dog how to be on a leash. That is number one, needs to happen with them living in a home with a human. So the same thing with the leash. You know, the leash pressure comes on towards me. The second the dog starts heading my way, pressure is released. And you can do all of that without saying a word. And a dog that taught me that not too long ago was a deaf dog. I had worked with a deaf German Shepherd, and it was amazing because it was like I had to remind myself if she can't hear me, because I still would talk, or I'd be like noises and stuff like that. Like, she can't even hear a thing I'm saying, but she could feel my energy. So if I would like kind of give her almost like a little bit of like a dancing motion where I'm really soft and like moving backwards, what I would get from her was soft, cute, cuddly body language coming towards me. So it really is a dance. And the verbals are beautiful too. Like, you'll hear me a lot with a shh noise that I make, and that is probably my most common verbal that I make. But it is also great of name recognition, teaching your dog their name. They're going to hear, I have a dog right now, his name is Cookie. So I go, Cookie, and he looks at me. It's like, all right, great. I can reward for that. We're starting to build up that recognition. So verbals are definitely a part of the equation, especially when we start working with like off leash. You know, your dog's running, you want them to come. Can't just be silent. You need to, you know, yell, come. So that all for me comes secondary though, is like, let me shape these patterns and behaviors, and then I'll just start labeling it.
Hope you guys are enjoying the conversation with Kait. We know we definitely did. We wanted to interrupt real quick just to talk about the new program from underdogfitness.com. It is the 10-to-1 training program. This is the training program that I wish I would have had when I was playing professional football, or even all the way back to when I was playing college football. It is a completely different take on training. It is creative. It is different. And I'm telling you, you will hit lifetime PRs. You will be able to lift weight you've never been able to lift before just by running this 7-week program 10-to-1. You can find it in the link on our Instagram bios, or you can go to underdogfitness.com. That's underdog with 2 G's. You can find the link there, and you can take advantage of the program. Get on it, enjoy it. Let us know how you feel when you're off it. We appreciate you for tuning in to the podcast. Now, without having to listen to me talk anymore about the training program, here it is. Back to more with Kait.
So, for instance, just so that, you know, I can talk about this all day long. Say I'm trying to get a dog to go on to what we call a place bed. So I guide the dog on, all 4 paws are on the bed. Great. I mark that good. And then we start to see the dogs just offering me a down, because they're learning a pattern of every time I go on here, she like walks around me, the dog starts going into a down. As the dog is going into the down without me even having to shape it, I'll start capturing that and calling it down. So as the dog's heading down, I say down, and they continue what they're already doing. Good. So I can start shaping stuff without even asking for it. And owners can and should be doing that too with their puppies as they bring them home. But it's hard to, because you immediately get a puppy and what do you want to do? I want to teach him shake. I want to teach him sit. I want to teach him down. And it's great. And I love it. I love seeing owners doing those things too. But I just wish that everyone would bring their puppies home if they get a puppy, and do all of like the lifestyle boundary type stuff and wait for labeling the kind of obedience type stuff. Because what happens is puppies are really excited to work with you in the beginning. And then you really lose, like, they lose their interest in actually like working and engaging with you. They're like, all right, the environment is so much more interesting now. this person's been talking to me for the last 6 months. I don't even know what they're saying. I'm going to go do what I want to do. So yeah, it really is, for me, the energy work, the nonverbal, the spatial pressure is my sweet spot. That's truly what people hire me for, is mindset work. They can go somewhere, get super sharp, really, really like quick, fun looking, explosive obedience. That's just not what I teach. But most of my owners, they're all family pet dogs. So most people don't come to me saying, my dog's too calm. It's usually,
Right.
my dog barks their head off, they're pulling on leash, they're anxious, they're, all of those kinds of things.
You mentioned puppies. Now, can this be done? Have you had success with older dogs, or by then are just routines and habits kind of like ingrained too far?
It's harder with some dogs. Some are like, they've been waiting their whole life to have clear communication. And I get some dogs that come in. I will say I do have an age limit, almost for honestly kind of like liability type thing too. Like, I don't want a geriatric dog here. That's just way too much physical activity for them. And it's also risky. Like, at that point, let them live their life how they're doing it, and let them go out strong. But yeah, I mean, we get 8-year-old dogs and stuff. There's some 8-year-old dogs that still seem like, our male will be 8 in May, and he's an athlete. Like, he's literally still seems like a super, super young dog. So like, they never stop learning. And that's the other thing, is my dogs aren't done learning. Like, I have to be consistent every day with them. Yes, I don't have to be nearly on them like I do the training dogs, but new behaviors can be taught and implemented. It will, for most dogs, be harder. If they've had the same patterns for 8 years, and now we want to make change. What I see people struggle with the most is when they get a dog, like, say, let's just pretend we have a couple that gets a puppy and it's like their first baby. And then they don't prepare this 8-year-old dog for a newborn coming in the situation. The parents will say, well, things won't change with the dog whatsoever. It will change with the dog. Like, regardless of, like, I'm sure, and you can probably speak to this better than anyone else, that becomes your whole life the second this new baby comes into the equation. And not that the dog isn't still a huge part of life, but this is where we see a lot of problems, is it was their whole life until this baby, and then the dog really struggles with stuff. So big life changes, not just babies, so big moves, big things like that is where we see kind of our older dogs who have had the same pattern for so many years, and then owners are like, oh, now I need to do something about this. Those are the ones that we really see have a hard time with training in general, just because it's literally a lifestyle change that is cold turkey. So it's just, it's like an addict almost, as they've had the same thing forever, and that piece of it is taken away. It's like they're going to have to literally detox from it. And we get dogs that come in at times, and it's sad to see, even younger dogs, where it's like their body has to re-regulate how to like have a calmer nervous system, because so much of their life has been fueled to create this like heightened state of mind and excitement, which I don't want to make it sound like excitement's a bad thing, but it's like, you constantly having attention, and then things shift, you're gonna have withdrawals from it. And we see it a lot with dogs.
It's crazy. So we were able to come home from the hospital on Monday after being in the hospital for a couple of days. And I am just like in such awe with like how intuitive our dog is with our baby girl. And it just blows my mind, is like, there are so many mistakes that I've made bringing this dog up, and she's 4. She's awesome. But just like how intuitively gentle she is with this little baby. And it just blows my mind, and it just reminds me of how smart dogs are. And just like from, the Belle, our dog, I've actually called my baby, sorry, Angelina, Belle, like 4 times.
Totally.
And it's just like one of the first things that I did on the day we got home was, after we made the introductions, I took her for a walk, just because like some, alone time with the puppy, I figured would be beneficial. But I am interested to see how things change down the road, because like you said, our dog was definitely my wife's world.
Yeah.
And that is changing.
Yeah. And it's also almost kind of like, and I wonder if your wife will experience this too, is like, there might become a little bit of like a mourning process a little bit down the road for her of like, oh, I like not giving Belle as much of like me as I used to. And I hope that she knows like, that's okay. Like the biggest thing is like making sure that we're still fulfilling our dogs in the way that they need it. So you choosing to go for the walk, that's not typical for what I hear. People are like immediately wanting to make it all about the puppy and the baby. And some dogs, honestly, are just so good with change and, you know, bringing new things to the table. I just don't work with a ton of those. But yes, like it's cool because the baby is bringing an energy to the equation. The baby is not telling Belle, I'm good. Like she's not verbalizing anything with her. She's feeling this energy and the dog is going to pick up on that immediately. And it sounds like she is, which is super cool to see. I'll be interested to hear, you know, as your baby gets bigger and is crawling around and stuff like that. That's usually where we see dogs be like, what the heck is this thing?
Yeah.
This is a little bit weird. And that's where like a little bit more boundaries have to come into the equation. But yeah, if people can just really think about like, what does my dog actually need to be successful today? And that's kind of like, what do we need? We need air in our lungs. We need water in our body. We need fuel from our food, and add in the extra things that it's like, all right, I need this to get through my day. Think of that with your dogs and they will be so much happier than 8,000 toys. Again, I'm guilty of all of these things. And it's not a bad thing. Your dogs can have toys. They can have love-ins. They can have extra treats. But what we see people do is do all of that and none of the, well, have your dogs gone outside and got to like sniff around today? Have they interacted and played with you? Have you taken them to get physical activity? Oh, well, no. That's what your dog needs, not 17 beds. Like it's kind of the same thing. It probably connects so much with you guys with working with athletes is like, that's the stuff that people need is like, I'm huge with mental health and all of that, but like, imagine if people that don't currently give any movement to their body, how much that'll help their mental health. And that is the same thing we see with dogs is a lot of the work that we're doing with these dogs is their mental health. And it's usually gaps of things that are being missed at home. And a lot of people think, well, I ran my dog for 7 hours. And you know, that's obviously so extreme, but you know what I mean? Like I took about a 7-mile run. They're still exhausted. Well, yeah, like have you taught them how to be calm in the house? Like they need meditation time now. So it's just really helping people learn of the things that they just don't know yet. And that's where I find my patience really kicks in with, I feel like a trainer can get a lot of burnout. You guys probably literally just take, again, dog out of it and say, you know, your clients, you guys would probably deal with less burnout if we just find, okay, where is this person coming from? Like finding some empathy for the owners for me is what really helps them, because if I'm always just like, oh, well, they're just not going to do it anyways, that is such massive burnout. Because then it's like, well, then why am I doing it? You know, why am I know that we can find that shift for people. So I just always tell my owners, like, this is what you know now. This is what you're going to know after training. And at the end of the day, you're going to find what works best for you and your dog, but trust my process for, you know, I tell them 30 to 90 days, depending on their dog. You can call me crazy now, but trust the process, implement it, do these small changes, which might feel very, very big for some people. Like a big one for a lot of the dogs that we have to work with is no couch time when the dog comes home. That's hard for the human. And people think, well, my poor dog's going to feel left out. It's like, no, that's how your human brain works. Yes, your dog might be laying on their bed whining, but it's just because we created that dependency. It's not because they're like, I'm not on a couch. No. That's not like dogs do not know what that means. My human has created this dependency. So now when I see my drug in the room, I need to be over by it. So it's really hard to shift that. But I know if owners really kind of take that step back and implement it, they're going to see lasting change. And that's what I want for my owners is lasting change, not a quick fix.
And I think that idea of lasting change resonates with CT and I, especially we talk about, we might be your first strength coach. But hopefully when you have your last workout with us, that's not your last workout.
Yeah.
There's a good chance if we do what we're supposed to be doing with our athletes, then we won't even be their last strength coach.
Totally.
And I think it's just having that long-term approach, as you're describing, really resonates in the athletic performance world. But I never really thought about the comparisons between, like, you're probably trying to fire yourself with the work you do with the dogs you're working with.
Yes.
If you do what you're trying to do with that animal.
Yeah, and the owners that do reach out are the ones with challenging dogs that are kicking ass at home, but they're struggling because it's not going to be perfect. Because every single time, even like on my website, on my application, I have people sign off on this of, this is a head start. This is just literally a sprinkle in time for your dog. People think of their dog being away for 2.5 weeks and they're like, oh my gosh, 2.5 weeks. I'm like, you've had your dogs for 4 years. Like, it's 2.5 weeks of their entire life. If you're expecting perfection from them, that's so much pressure on me, the trainer, but that's so much pressure on your dog. That would be like, hey, I want to have a 6-pack in 2.5 weeks. Can you guys make that happen? Like, probably not going to happen.
Spring break shredder on the corner, right?
Exactly. That's what we get. Shredding out right now. So it's the same concept. And my role, how I've told myself, is to shape the owners to be ready for that kind of expectation. And the people that do reach back out, again, like I was saying, and probably same with your guys' clients, that if you do see them like take a break and then maybe come back, are the ones that give it their all and they try really hard. But maybe they have like a physical ailment that makes things harder for them. Or with us, it's a really challenging dog from a standpoint of genetically, there's just some things we can't change with certain dogs, and owners almost have to kind of like mourn what they thought dog ownership would be like with certain dogs. With others, it's just, we get puppies, we get young dogs, we get really just happy-go-lucky dogs as well. But what started this was me with my own challenging dog of knowing we have certain genetics that we can't change and we have to do our best with what we're working with. And that can be hard for an owner that's not a trainer to, kind of change the way they live life with a dog, and have to also like tell family members with some dogs, like, you can't interact with my dog. Like, that's hard because people don't get it unless they struggle with a dog and have reactivity, have super nervousness with new people. Other people are like, well, what's wrong with their dog? And it's like, I have to coach my humans through like, nothing is wrong. Like, you guys are good. Like, people suck sometimes, or just people don't get it. And, hopefully one day they don't have to get it, because it is hard to have a challenging dog, which I'm sure is the same thing for, an athlete that is trying to go with something that it's like, we don't know if we can get your body there. Or a parent that has a child that has a really, really, a learning disability that's just like, we have to now do the best we can. And that's probably really, really challenging. And then we have the added element where our dogs can't speak. So we have to be mindful of what they're trying to tell us through the situations that we put them through. And if time and time again, they seem super stressed out, their bite attempts, or they're reacting like crazy, we've got to change something in the environment. And if we watch that, usually owners do really, really well if they just are mindful of their environment.
Gosh, so many great points there to repeat and listen to over and over again. I was nervous, James, a couple of minutes ago. You said to Kate, "Oh, the first thing I did when I brought my daughter home, I go, oh boy, he's going to do something."
Like,
that she is not going to. She's like, well, actually, that's the worst thing you could have possibly done.
Yeah, I would have told you.
Yeah.
So well done. So that made me
you did great. Yeah.
But so, okay. So kind of on that, to that point, right. You had mentioned like, creating habits and rituals and all these things. Are there a couple things that, generally speaking, I understand, everybody would be a little different. Every dog would be a little different, but are there general habits and rituals that are important for, training, that the individual should think about doing on a daily basis with their dogs to be able to kind of get them going in the right direction? Let's say if somebody doesn't have any rituals outside of, right, wake up, feed, walk, pick up the, poop, and kind of that stuff. What are some of the things that, that like immediate takeaways that people can start doing today with their dog that'll help the most?
So a couple of things is when we slow down, because all of us are constantly go, go, go. I'm sure right before this, you guys were doing the same thing as me. All right, I'm finishing this up. Then I got to jump onto that call. Then I got to do this. So we need to force
No,
it.
that's not what, yeah.
Where it's like you get out of bed in the morning, it's like you hit green light. It's like you go. So if you know that, like, then we got to get up a little earlier, or we got to like something. So slow down. Another thing is put the leash on your dog in the home. So that's where so many people think of a leash as just to be utilized outside, not inside. So they're, dogs running up to the window. No, like get over here. Okay, well, if your dog's running up to the window and barking their head off and they're dragging the leash, you can go grab the leash and calmly guide them away. So putting the leash back on when attended. Crate training, and I know some people are going to hate me for saying that because there's a controversy for crate training, which for me I don't get, but that's okay. But that is a recommendation of creating a safe spot for your dog, and that's not me saying that they always have to use it, but it's a great home base for dogs where it's like, all right, we've got a huge group of people over, my dog's going all over the place, either jumping on guests or just super nervous. All right, we've created and practiced them having their own bed with a door on it. So that's another one. The biggest thing I tell owners and anyone that wants to start new is like, wait for your dog to ask permission. And what that is them looking to you. So what I mean by that is we've got our dog in the house on a leash right now. I'm walking up to the door and we're going to go out for a walk. What so many people do is just get into the routine, open the door, walk out. The dog's not looking, their dog's looking outside. If so many people would just walk up to the door, have the leash in their hand, and wait. See what your dog offers. It might take a while for some dogs, but they will end up being like, well, what the heck do you want? Good. That's what I wanted. Now we go. And I don't want you to be like, hey, look at me. I want it to just be, what you could do if like it's taking a really long time, you could take a step back to get them to kind of like feel your energy and like draw them up a little bit. That would be another one. And doing that at any threshold, so any doorway you're going through, out of the car, out of the crate, waiting for eye contact before food, all of those kinds of things would just be like automatically you can jump in and do right away. There's so many other things I would recommend to do on top of that, but I don't want to overwhelm people being like, I'm doing everything wrong. But I always kind of tell people like, teach your dog how to ask for permission, and they can only ask by looking to you, and then they can do all of the fun, good things. They just need to be more mindful, but they're only going to know how to do that if we start to mark that.
Excellent. Are there some mistakes that you've made when working with your dogs and in the training that you look back and say, oh my gosh, this is so, thank you that I made this mistake now because I've learned from it? Because I'm sure whatever that is, plenty of people making it. Do you have like a favorite or most memorable mistake you've made that you think about every single day? And again, another thing that I think people can take from this just immediately.
A couple of things. Well, with my own dog, I will say it's a little bit harder because a lot of my mistakes of things I would do differently now was kind of risky for me to do it the way I would do it now. So what I mean by that is I should have let my male make more mistakes when he was younger so I could teach, versus doing so much of like keeping him from the world of like, okay, I can't let him do this, I can't let him do that, because we were dealing with dangerous behaviors. But now my skill set is so much higher that like, I wish I safely and controlled let him make more mistakes so I could have taught him like, nope, that isn't what I'm looking for, but hey, let's try this instead, where I almost kept him too small. So there's only so much I can do with like, again, the bandwidth that he has now at this point. So safely allow your dog to make mistakes so that you can turn those into training opportunities and learning opportunities. And what that might even look like, I posted a reel the other day where I saw this dog heading to one of the other dogs' crates when he first got up for drop off. He was a super reactive, big bully, like sweet guy, but like totally just wants to go dominate the room. And he goes up and I let him test that boundary. And I very fairly and clearly let him know, nope, that's not what we do. And then I guided him away and I gave him the opportunity to go do it again. He didn't go do it again. I didn't do enough of that with my male. It was just all like, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. So I was almost harder on him. And what I mean by that is not like firmer, but like, I'm just like, nope, you don't test any of this out. And I kick myself all the time for that. But a really, really big one that I definitely do like, and I know this isn't the truth, but partially it plays a part that I'm like, I ruined my dog, is if you are a college student or someone young getting a puppy, do not like just put them right into this college house life type of living. So I was graduated, but my fiance at the time, now husband, was still in college. And so our dog, our puppy, would go back and forth between our houses because we were living long distance. And I would go bring him when I would visit and stuff. And he'd be at like all of these college house parties and just like not a space for an insecure puppy to be in, where a lot of people are probably like, that was great socialization. I'm like, no, my puppy was at a Halloween party with people in masks and now he's human aggressive. And I'm not saying that that's what caused him to be that way, but developmental periods for puppies are so crucial. Do not screw them up by throwing them in the deep end like that. And again, could it have been something that played a part? I think it was. Was it everything? No. Like I already knew genetically when, I first got him, he was already predispositioned to all of those things, but I don't think it helped. So that's a mistake that I kick myself for all the time. So now when I have like young dog owners or puppy owners or any dog owners, I'm like, let's work on our relationship with the dog first. That should be your focus, not making sure all of your aunts and uncles and grandma and grandpas and, best friends are all, come on over, I got a new dog, let's throw them in the deep end. Really focus on your relationship with your dog versus like this idea of I'm a dog owner now, they need to do everything with me. And so, yeah, I definitely kick myself for that one.
Gosh, so you are exactly right. Cause I've been at those Halloween parties. I mean, now over, a decade and a half ago, but everybody is so excited to see the pet, but nobody thinks about what is the mental state of this animal. And this is something that we should be doing. So would you have, instead of, putting him and exposing him to all that, you would have created him, you would have created a safe space for him? Is that kind of the process then?
Yeah. And it was all too much too soon. So he could have been in that house up in a safe room in his crate, hearing the noises. Okay. But I'm advocated for is kind of like, I'm good. Mom and dad got me. But in there, it was just like, fend for yourself. And I, can see that he was just kind of like, at one point, I was like, what the heck am I doing? Like, he was just like sitting on a couch, like looking around, like, what is this? And so then I'm like, oh, maybe he's, just not even thinking, honestly, at that point. And so it would have been much better to just have him up in his crate. He got, a nice long walk before, like making sure if, there's also going to be a setting, like New Year's Eve is a great example, 4th of July, where people are like, my dog runs away from the fireworks. Mm-hmm. That could have been totally avoided if we properly crate trained and just knew that, hey, my dog has a hard time with that. A lot of dogs do, but we make sure that we get them fulfilled before those events happen and then put them away safely, making sure that they can have a nice bone in their crate, whatever you want. But that's really good dog ownership right there, is making sure that they're advocated for when maybe you're not on things. And some dogs, again, would be totally fine in that setting. And it would never, they would never have issues, but fewer dogs would be okay in that setting. At least for the ones that I see. And I even really, really well bred dogs, we see them not be okay with that kind of stuff.
Gosh, there's so many great takeaways from this. And I want to be respectful of your time. We so much appreciate you for coming on, but I do have a couple more questions kind of lacking continuity that, again, I think, just from talking to people about having this conversation, that it's, oh, could you ask Kate about this? Could you ask Kate, so just some answers, kind of checking a lot of boxes. Sure. So when it comes to walks, right, you hear, and I know when we first adopted our dog, it was, you need a zip collar, you need an e-collar, which has been amazing, by the way. Thank you for that. You need a prong collar. So what's that look like for you? What do you think works best? What do you think is, maybe the standard that people should have when walking their dog?
Yeah, so we are an e-collar program, but I don't want everyone that goes and get a dog to go get an e-collar. My first step was, if you're bringing home any dog, get a nice slip lead. So a thin slip lead, and watch my videos, because I show even just slip lead work where I want you to do what I call 180 turns. You're walking one way, you teach that leash pressure, and you start making turns until your dog's in kind of like a follower mode. So slip lead would be great to start with your walks. Again, if you're getting a young puppy, don't even worry about the walks yet. Like, you should just be doing engagement work outside, exposure. There's some spots where you can't even walk the puppy yet until they're up to date on things. If you're adopting, say, an adult dog who is just broody and big, the slip lead might just not be enough right away. So that's where getting a properly high quality prong collar is going to be really helpful, because we can be softer on the leash than with the prong with a really large forward dog. But again, any tool, because you'll get people too that'll hear the word e-collar and they're like, what the heck? Like, you're shocking dogs. First off, there are really crappy e-collars that I will never put my stamp of approval on. So really high quality muscle stimulator e-collars. It's like a TENS unit is the one we use, e-collar technologies. And that basically is also your off-leash adventure tool. My dogs see their e-collars and they're like, yeah, let's fucking go. They're so excited. They're like, we're going on the trail, we're going to romp around, where I think people see like the ASPC commercials, they think the song in the background's playing when you like lift up an e-collar or something like that. Like, okay, yeah, whatever. So if you really want solid off-leash reliability, e-collar is huge for that. So yeah, start with a 6-foot slip lead, get a long line so you can go out and work on recall type stuff. I definitely work dogs for food. I just use their food that they eat. So have them earn their meals. You don't need tons of super high value food. You can throw that in the mix, of course, but your body is your greatest tool. So that's where I got to put this little plug in there of making sure that you get a dog that fits your lifestyle. If you're living a very sedentary lifestyle and it's hard for you to go on a walk and you want a Belgian Malinois, first off, I would not take you on as a client if that was like, that's terrible, terrible combination. So really making sure that owners are so intentional about the type of dog, the breed of dog that they're bringing home. At the end of the day, like, the tools don't matter if you have like a perfect storm. No tool is going to fix that kind of stuff.
You had mentioned the part about kind of the off-leash training and the recall training, which I think is so cool when you have your animals run away and then they come back after you say one word or whatever that is. Is there a, like a quick kind of process or tutorial you could kind of talk people through as far as recall training goes?
So it's super relationship based, but how I would start it is having a dog, again, on, call it like a 10-foot, 15-foot leash, or even just your 6-foot slip lead, and the dog starts going away from you. I want you to either use their name or a name and a little bit of leash, and they head back your way, yes, and have a reward for them as they head your way. Let them go do it again and keep doing that every time. So say we'll use the dog Cookie. Cookie's heading away from me. I go, Cookie. He heads my way because he hears that high-pitched voice. Yes. And that's going to build his like motivation to come towards me, come towards me, come towards me. And then I layer all of that with my e-collar work to make sure that it's reliable, because I don't want to chance a dog seeing a deer and going across a busy road with my Cookie. I want to make sure that I can say, come, and I use the tone function on the e-collar, but then I follow it up with the stim function, making sure that it's 100% reliable. But it's so relationship based. So if you start your dog off in the backyard because you have a fenced in yard and you're just like, Cookie, come, as a puppy, they're gonna be like, I heard it in my human's voice. Great, I'm coming in. Mark my words, by 4.5 months old, maybe 5 months old, they're no longer going to be coming in when off leash. Then I have people be like, my puppy came when called off leash for so long. I'm like, no, they didn't know what you were actually doing. They're just like, cool, that person's exciting. They're new. Maybe they have something for me. And what also happens is the owners stop rewarding when the dog comes in. So we have to make things non-negotiable as well. So a long line and making sure that we're not just putting our dog out in the fencing yard as a puppy and never actually working on coming when called, really starting to create a pattern with it.
Awesome. A couple more. Introducing dogs to each other. I know everybody has different thoughts on it. What is your thought on when you're introducing new dogs?
So what I always kind of tell my owners at first is we're not introducing them. So what I mean by that is let's passive introductions to start. Some dogs will immediately be thrown into a yard and do beautifully together, but so many would not be. So what I like to do is before I even start doing any sort of social work with the dogs is again, focusing on the human and dog relationship. So going for a walk with a friend and their dog, getting them comfortable just walking around each other. They're immediately picking up on all of their energy, all of their sense, all of like sizing each other up at a distance, but that's giving them both space to be successful for when things do come closer together. So mine is not a just find a neutral ground and then go have them like sniff butts. Again, that will work perfectly fine with some dogs, but a lot it wouldn't. So I think about creating that passive coexistence first, and then slowly bringing the dogs together. And then once that is how we do is we do it on leashes. I don't let dogs pull up to each other and like meet face to face, but we'll be moving and like organically having the dogs move around each other, and we'll let one of them go up and sniff the rear, and we let them know good, and then we tell them let's go, and keep them moving with the human. So really focusing on that, and then you're going to see right away how the energy is. Like if the dogs are just so loosey-goosey, drop the leashes and be there to step in with when needed. But if it's like serious behaviors, this might take weeks and months before you'd even do any direct interactions. Like when we adopted our female with our male who's dog aggressive, we didn't have them directly interact for 3 months. Otherwise everything was passive, and now they're best buds. But it would not have been that way. Like our female would have gotten attacked if we were just like, best of luck, let's let the dogs figure it out. Like, no, they'll figure it out all right, and it won't be what the human wants.
So. All awesome. Thank you so much. Again, it's just things that I think people can take immediately and start using kind of, in their day-to-day lives with their animals. So we always wrap up with this question, Kait. So, you had mentioned done some shadowing. You obviously follow some other trainers on social media, and you see what's going on and kind of keep a pulse of what's going on in the dog training world. Are there one or two things that you think people are just falling short of, or that is missing kind of in your industry and in your niche? Or do you think everybody's doing a pretty good job? And if they are, what are those things you think we're missing?
Kindness. So I think that everyone could, be a little bit more forgiving that we're all different individuals. And what I mean by that is at the end of the day, people again are teaching how to teach dogs skills. Most of us are doing things to the best of our abilities and are doing to the best that we think is for the dogs. There's going to be some people out there that I would never even like that person's just not a good person, or they're, whatever. But I don't see a lot of people out there, like from a skill set perspective, that I'd be like, oh my gosh, like they don't know how to teach sit. That's not it. It's like this cutthroat, like there's these dynamics of some people think that if you use an e-collar, you're abusive. Or there's people that it's like, if you use a flexi leash to go out with your dog and let them sniff, you're a, lazy owner. It's like, why are we making this about tools? Let's make it about how's the dog, how's the owner, and are they living really fulfilled lives together? So the gap I see is less about the skill set that's being taught out there, to be honest, and more about like humans being kinder to each other. So I don't like follow a ton of trainers, to be honest, not because I don't like what they're doing and not because I don't support them, but I'm so much more than a trainer outside of my life that it's like, I'd rather, really show up and cheer those people on that I really connect to as an individual, as a human, less than what their skill set is, which I'm sure you guys see that too with other trainers. Like you probably don't want to follow 1,800 other trainers that it's like, we're all teaching something, probably some that you're seeing that's like, oh my gosh, like what? They're letting their client do that right now, they're gonna hurt their back. Or there's probably others that's just like, we've just got way too much ego going on. But at the end of the day, we all hopefully want the best for our dogs and owners, and for you guys clients. And that's what I see more of the gap of, to be completely honest, is I never look at things from a look at that person's skill set. I'm more or less like, how are they treating the humans that they're working with, the dogs that they're working with, and the other trainers in the industry.
If people haven't already paused this episode and found you on Instagram or social media, where can they do that? Because I'm sure, if I was 10 minutes into this thing, I'd be like, hold on a second, let me find Kait. So where can they find you? What kind of information can they get from you online?
Yeah, so on Instagram, it's at KANE, KANE, the number 9 dog training. There I share tons of free content. We have the subscription platform also on Instagram that we've been sharing tons of like behind the scenes, like in-depth work that we're doing for, only an extra $5 a month right on Instagram. On our website, you can find our e-course. So it's our Mindset Over Obedience e-course, and that's KANE9Training.com. And that is where I show how I teach my follow, I teach my recall, all with e-collar work. I do get people that ask that, like, do I need an e-collar to do it? It would be unfair for me to say no, but I would say you can use the same concepts if you're just using a leash. And then YouTube, we share tons of videos, what we kind of call like our vlog series as well, where it'll be a 25-minute video of me just doing an entire session. So I kind of tell people that, like, if they know nothing about me or know nothing about my work, they didn't look, because we put out so much free content that I'm like, if you watch all of my stuff, people could train their dogs, and people are tagging me that, they're training their dogs at home, and it's so cool to see. Only other thing that I'll say is on our website, if you go to our shop, I do have ebooks as well. So my puppy ebook, I recommend to anyone considering to get a puppy, because I even talk about the process of before even picking out a breed. So, super affordable options there. And I also have my virtual coaching sessions. So I get a lot of people that want to work with me, but too far to travel. So that is at least a good option, where we get on a 30-minute call, talk through a game plan, and then owners can go and implement the things that we talk about. So all sorts of resources, but Instagram is our number one spot that we really, really share so much content.
To kind of echo that, when putting together kind of ideas for conversation topics of this podcast, I probably got through, 15 pages, on different posts on social media, and then had maybe 50 to 60 questions. And I'm like, oh boy, I got to figure out how to, cut it down, because there's so much great info. Everybody who follows is going to get just unbelievable without, again, even having to do anything outside of hit, like or subscribe or follow, anything like that. We'll get so much great information. And again, it seems like, the what you keep saying is, we just need to be kind. Like, we need to be kinder to each other. We need to be kinder with our animals. We need to slow down and just, get our kind of connect our hearts. And that, finishes basically what we always say at the end of the podcast, is the 3 things that we ask all our listeners to do, who make it this far. Is number 1, continue to practice gratitude. Number 2, tell the people that you love, including your animals, that you love them. And number 3, we talked about having espresso. We talked about having coffee. We want you to live your life stimulated. So we appreciate everybody who listened. Again, give Kait a follow. Kait, thank you so much. This is unbelievable information. Again, something I'm going to listen to 5 or 6 times, not because I like hearing myself talk, because I enjoy the information you're sharing. So thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you for being the first other human being to talk to James outside of his baby and his wife over the last few weeks. Oh, yeah. Congratulations to James and his wife on the new baby. And thank you again, everybody, for listening. And we will catch you on the next episode of Cutoffs and Coffee. Thank you.